Scrappy Peeps, it's Suzanna here today for ThermOWeb, and I'm here to share with you these new foils. They're part of the Fairytale Collection. They come in 5 new colors, and I'm creating this layout with those foils. I did not fussy cut, sorry. I used my electronic cutting machine to cut this. It's almost a 10-inch circle from some Paige Evans, and I am going to create a background using the blue foil, which is the glass slipper. So I have a very fine stencil, and with that stencil, what I'm trying to show you here, it's an Echo Park stencil, is that the duo with these fine stencils, it smudges them. And so I am actually using the now discontinued transfer gel. The Duo gel has replaced the transfer gel because with the Duo you can use both your die cut machine or a hot laminator. And I'm using a hot laminator. I wonder if it'll work better with a die cut machine. I just don't have a die cut machine that I can fit 12-inch paper through, and I like to use these foils with my scrapbook directly onto my page. And so I'm going to hoard this transfer gel for as long as I can, but that is discontinued. I am now going to set that aside to dry, and I'm going to work on the next part of the foiled pieces of the layout, and I am going to get a toner sheet, run that through again my electronic die cut machine, and I have squares of the different colors of those 5 different colors of the Fairytale foil. So there's Prince Periwinkle, which is the lilac, the glass slipper that I mentioned earlier, which is blue, the lily pad, which is green, Peach Princess, which is the orange or the peachy color, and then the Enchanted Rose or the pink. And I'm going to put each of those colors, kind of alternate them on each of the letters, and run that through my hot laminator. And don't forget that when you're using the toner sheets, you want to put the color side facing out, or the shiny silver side to the black, so that the black toner sheet will be kissing the silver side with the color that you want facing out. So once I've pushed those through the machine, I want to do my next set, and then I am going to peel off the excess, which is going to leave me with some beautiful foiled letters. They are going to create the rest of the title, which is going to say Once Upon a Time. But before I do that, you can see with this N here, I have embossed it. That was my example one there. And so I am going to just dry emboss these letters with a Sizzix folder and run those through my machine. But while I've got the laminator on, my transfer gel has dried, and I am now going to run that through the laminator with this. I get hung up on the colors, sorry, because they're new to me, the glass slipper for the background of this layout. And that's going to go in that circle that I showed at the beginning of the layout. So I'm going to just cut some pieces that are appropriate in size. Kind of just piece those together. But did you see how that blue has a shimmer of green to it? It's perfect. I absolutely love these new foils. So be sure to head over to the ThermOWeb website and you can shop there. Currently, Simon Says Stamp SSS does not have them, but I'm sure they are on order. So, and if you spend over $25, shipping is free for ThermOWeb. So with all 5 colors, that is definitely free shipping for you. So run that through. Again, remember when you're using the foils, you want to have the color side out. So I'm going to peel those off, and that is a nice crisp background. But I want a little bit of color because I want that to meld into that sort of painted background. So I am going to get some Distress ink in yellow and just sort of swirl some color over that, leaving the white center, but the yellow background there. So I'm going to actually, what happens is these end up looking like they've got, see that blob, or that rectangular blob there? It's not smushing and blending very well. So I'm just going to dab the initial wet ink onto a scratch piece of paper and then blend into the rest of the paper. And it blends really nicely over the foils. In fact, I think that the yellow really makes those blue starry diamonds, I think they make them stand out even more. So that is going to be it for the background. I'm going to use my Gina K adhesive to adhere that to the page and then trim off the selvages there. And so you can see my partially finished letters. I still have to run the rest of them through the embossing, my manual die cut machine through a dry embossing folder. So that's the big old O. It is a double cut file, so I have the background is from a Paige Evans Horizon piece of pattern paper that matches that background piece. And then you see that big T on the right hand corner there for time. That is actually from Chamel from her Head Over Heels collection, as well as the embellishments that I'm going to use with this. So this is Ultra Bond. It's a liquid adhesive, and I love this with the fine tip applicator for fussy detail work like that when you need adhesive. And I love that you can do what I'm about to do here, which is pick it up and look at it sideways and use some adhesive, kind of squish it down in the cracks of things that you may have missed. It does stay pretty tacky for a good length of time, so something as detailed as this you can absolutely get tacked down without everything drying on you and kind of leaving a bubble in there because you didn't put enough adhesive. So this is what I mean by sort of sideways squashing it in, kind of like the meat in a sandwich after the fact. So that's the big old O for once. And then the rest of the letters are the foiled toner sheet that's going to say upon a time, other than that T. And then that one I have already embossed, but I'm just putting it there so that you can see the placement, or so that I can see the placement of how I want to line things up. I hadn't trimmed my picture symmetrically, so I'm going to trim that and tuck that into the O there. So now I'm going to get my manual die cut machine. See my purple tape there? I always leave pieces of purple tape. I'm not actually going to use them here because there's nothing to shift around, and I do work on a magnetic plate normally. But yes, that's very handy and always at the top of my die cut machine. So I'm going to just run that through, and it is going to separate the letters a little bit, but that's fine. I was worried that that would happen, but they're easy to piece back together, and I can use the adhesive on the back of the toner sheets. I love that because it's one less form of adhesive that I need to worry about, and arrange those letters on the page there. Because I was using an embossing folder, I had to put in a bigger plate on my die cut machine. So here I'm going to peel each of the letters off and stick them on. So a little bit about this page. This is kind of the antithesis to fairy tales. I don't believe in fairy tales. I believe in happily ever after, but I believe that happily ever after is more about work. And a lot of hard work in a marriage, and we're trying to raise our children to understand that, you know, all those Disney movies that kids grow up watching these days, that those are literally fairy tales, and that that's not what they should expect in a marriage. So my husband and I have spent a lot of time working hard on our marriage, especially lately because things weren't good for a little while. And I want to celebrate the fact that we did put a lot of work into our marriage, and that things are good, and to continue to remind myself and him that we need to continue to put in the hard work and make the efforts that we stopped doing for a little while. And not because we believed that it was a fairy tale, but just kind of life took over, and our priorities changed. So see what I mean? That P is separated. The top is removed from the bottom, and that's because of the dry embossing, but they come back together very clearly, and on the close-ups you can't even see where the disjointedness of those letters, they're not disjointed, but where they pulled apart from one another. So I love the way, you can't see it here, but when you see these letters and these new foils in the light, they're multi-tone, and they're just absolutely gorgeous. So definitely something that you need to add to your ThermOWeb foil collection. Again, you can go to the website ThermOWeb right now and get those 5 colors. The orange, blue, green, purple, and the pink are available. Alrighty, so I've got Once Upon. Now I'm going to put the A. A lot of the design of this layout, because it's very heavy in cut file, I actually did in Silhouette Studio, and then I just had to sort of replicate that once I had created the elements that I wanted, and then I'm going to go in and embellish that. Not everything ends up being perfectly straight, and that's okay because of my mixed media background. With the foil, I was able to, you can't really tell that things are a little bit skiwampus here and there. I intentionally used a black and white photo, and the reason I used the black and white photo is because this isn't so much about the occasion as it is about my story that I'm telling, that is the antithesis to the fairy tale. I don't have fairy tale-y things in my house, and so this is how I wanted to showcase these foils for you today. My last letter, and then I am finished with the foils and going to embellish the rest of the page. And it's actually a little bit of a lengthy process. So that is me using my ThermOWeb products. And if you don't care to see how I construct the rest of this layout, so the rest of this is processed now. That was all technique. The rest of this video is processed, and if you don't care to watch anymore, feel free to just go ahead and hit the stop button. But I wanted to show you the foils. This is more just me doing a little bit more embellishment. So the embossing folder from Echo Park that I used was more I'm going to call them diamonds. They're kind of like cross-shaped diamonds. And so I wanted to put a little bit more shape into that as well as a little bit more color. So I'm using these epoxies that coordinate with Chamel's Head Over Heels collection, which is where all of the embellishments that I'm going to use come from. You can see to the right there, I have the sticker sheet as well as the rub-ons and the die cuts and the puffy hearts stickers as well. So I'm going to mix some of the foiled stickers that come with Chamel's collection, and then these are some ivy flourishes that are free from, or they're not free, they're in the Cartabella collection over at Silhouette Studio. I had originally thought that I was going to put ivy on that bottom right corner of the circle, only you don't really have corners, edge of the circle over there. But the file that I used, I didn't like, and it didn't really blend in very well with the layout. So you can see the ivy and the O, and so I just went with these. And actually, that file that I was referring to is in the top left of my little blue holder up the top there. You can just kind of get a peek of it with the blue tea that I also had, thinking that I might use that. But it didn't quite match the blue in the Fairytale foils, and so that is why I didn't go with that. Now I've got some of the embellishments, and I fussy cut some of the flowers from the Paige Evans Horizon pattern paper. So those flowers are that pinky purple, yellow, and the blue. So a matching color to the glass slipper blue in the foils. And so I really like the way that the green ties into the patterned paper that's in the background as well as with the foils. And I like that drapey cascading look over the edge of the circle of the O there. It very much reminds me of that ornate fairy tale font that you often see, that with the actual Once Upon a Time. I didn't want to cover up too much of my work at the top there, and I needed to save room for journaling, so I will keep the journaling at the bottom. I trialed that banner at the bottom there, but it's very dark and it's not the same hue of green, so I'm going to get rid of that. I love the little frog with the crown that's resting on the T, and he's perfect for the fairy tale theme that goes with the antithesis of fairy tale in this layout. Typically on my layouts, I like to have trios of things, but I am stepping away from that because there's lots of just sort of whimsical things that are around the edge of the circle, and I feel like the circle breaks that rigidity of needing that visual triangle there. The photo is very dominantly tied into the story, and while I have a lot of journaling, it's actually not the focus of the layout. I really wanted the focus of the layout in this particular instance to be those foils and sort of explain the why I have as much journaling as I have. The journaling has nothing to do with the photo, which is why I'm going to put a tag at the bottom here, and I'll explain that when I get there. But the tag has photo taken on, just to date it and date the journaling really. I do use a lot of the Gina K double-sided foam to pop things, and that's what I've just popped that little froggy there, Prince Frog, off the page with. And most of the rest of the adhesive that I like to use is actually this Gina K permanent dot roller. You'll see every video that is my go-to adhesive, as well as the double-sided ThermOWeb tape. I use that a lot for things, especially if I'm using Fun Foam, which is not a ThermOWeb product, by the way. I like to use Fun Foam to back my photos. If I'm backing embellishments, I usually will use the Gina K double-sided foam there. So just a lot of fun embellishments. Some of them are actually die cuts. Some of them are the flowers that I fussy cut, and it just adds the whimsy, the dreaminess of a fairy tale to the story. So these are the rub-ons that come with the Fairytale Collection, and I don't like them. Lately, if you've watched any of my videos, I have been using a lot of October Afternoon, and they are like butter. They're easy to rub on and they come off clearly. This did not go so clearly, and I didn't like it. So when I referred to a tag earlier, a label, this is where I'm going to use the label to cover up those flowers. They would have been fine. See how I tried to use the teacup? It just changed the balance of the layout. Everything now is on the diagonal, really, from the top left down to the bottom right. Your eye flows that way from the photo to the title to the journaling, and you'll see that once that's there. And so moving that cup kind of just changed everything. I do have that dragonfly up the top right, but it melds into that pink in the background, and so you can't really tell. So that is the label that I'm going to use. It's a LE Studio print and cut. I have thousands of those, literally probably thousands, not thousands, hundreds of them from various collections over the years that just sit available to me, and so I'm going to end up using that the original green and white one to cover up that and just make it work in the layout, because that die cut just wasn't going to work for me. And so, but I am going to try a couple of other things first. There was something about that stark white in the label that actually bothered me, which is why I toyed with a bunch of other things. But then that really heavy hot pink didn't work either. And so if I took the label in, it's not so white, and it works perfectly with that butterfly or moth. It looks more like a monarch butterfly. That sort of softens that, adds a little bit of color, bold color there, to go with the shimmer of the foils. So that is going to wrap up my layout. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the new foils, please don't hesitate to leave them in the box down below. Enjoy the full layout here and the close-ups, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks for stopping in today. Take care.